I think they're calling us Deathworlders now. Corporal Hicks laughed, tossing a ration bar to his buddy across the cramped quarters of the human flagship. Not exactly the name you'd want at first, but I mean, we earned it. The other soldier, Private Ford, shrugged, unwrapping the bar. Guess they finally figured out what it means to mess with Earth. Outside, through the thick reinforced windows, the stars glittered coldly, distant spectators to the newest chapter in galactic history. The Grand Coalition of Species, a sprawling alliance that had once seemed undefeatable, was starting to buckle. The alien empire had assumed Earth's armies were like those of other worlds, predictable, cautious, and unable to handle extreme combat environments. But what they hadn't accounted for was that humans didn't just survive under pressure, they thrived. Ford took a bite of his ration and shook his head. Still can't believe they thought we'd just lie down and take it. One little embargo, one quarantine of our system, and they figured we'd just roll over. Hicks grinned, the humor lighting his face even in the harsh glare of the room's lights. They thought they were doing us a favor, contain the Death World, keep them out of galactic affairs. That didn't last long once they tried sticking us in a cage. Outside, a flash of distant light marked the demise of another coalition vessel, scattering like a flare against the dark. Hicks and Ford exchanged glances, both feeling the silent satisfaction ripple through the room as the news came in over the comms. Another alien ship down, another piece of the coalition torn away. Command says they've got some big names on board, Ford murmured. High-ranking officers. Captured 'em alive this time. Hicks snorted. Alive for now, they're getting a front row seat to see what we're capable of. He leaned back, stretching as if discussing the fate of the galaxy was no more taxing than reviewing sports scores. Ford shifted uneasily. It's just, I never thought we'd be the ones everyone fears. We always got painted as the friendly neighbor species, you know. Hicks nodded, but his gaze sharpened. That's what makes it work. They underestimated us, and now they're learning the hard way. He gestured toward the distant view of their massive fleet, a patchwork of ships, some salvaged from skirmishes, others pulled from Earth's fleets. Their presence alone sent shivers through the stars. A sudden crackle over the intercom interrupted them. Attention all units, preparing for boarding procedures. Be advised, coalition resistance is likely. Ford grinned, finishing the last bite of his bar. Looks like it's time. The humans assembled in the loading bay were ready. Some checking equipment, others in silent concentration. Hicks and Ford joined them, each taking their position. As the heavy doors slid shut and the docking clamps engaged, they felt a familiar rumble as the ship attached itself to an enemy vessel, an alien cruiser whose crew undoubtedly dreaded what was coming next. Ford glanced around. They still don't get it, do they? They think we'll give them terms. Hicks laughed, the sound rolling through the cramped space. Well, they'll get terms all right, surrender unconditionally or face the consequences. We've tried talking, we've tried every diplomatic trick in the book. Now it's our turn to set the rules. The bay doors hissed open, and the humans surged forward, a wave of movement and purpose. The interior of the alien ship was cold and sterile, all polished metals and dim blue lights casting shadows that seemed to pull away as the humans advanced. Alien soldiers, each armored in sleek, unfamiliar designs, stood in rows, eyes wide behind their visors. They had been drilled, trained to stand firm even in the face of the unknown, but as the humans approached, some of the aliens took a step back. The unspoken fear in their ranks was a tangible presence. One alien soldier, visibly higher in rank, stepped forward, weapon raised, but trembling slightly. Stand down, he barked, his voice translated automatically over their comms. This is coalition territory. You are not authorized to. Hicks strode up, unfazed, and fixed the alien with a stare that might have melted steel. Authorized? He echoed, voice cold. Your authority is nothing out here. Your coalition, what's left of it, is running out of places to hide. There was a hesitation, a flicker of uncertainty. The alien officer took another step back, momentarily speechless. Lower your weapons, Hicks commanded, his tone sharp. You're outmatched. This doesn't have to end the hard way. But the alien, whether out of pride or desperation, raised his weapon, a slight quiver betraying his fear. Hicks's expression didn't change. Without a word, he moved faster than the alien could react, disarming him in a single fluid motion. The other soldiers, both human and alien, watched in silence. It was an efficient display, one that made the alien soldiers exchange glances, their initial resolve shaken. Hicks turned to the alien officer again. This time his tone was icy. You'll live to see what comes next, but you might not like it. He nodded to his squad, and they moved deeper into the ship, clearing each corridor, each chamber with practiced precision. They encountered scattered resistance, aliens who tried in vain to halt their progress, but as they advanced, it became clear that the fight was draining from the Coalition's forces. Fear began to replace duty in the eyes of the defenders, and more than a few found themselves retreating from these relentless beings who'd come from the planet they had once deemed too dangerous to include in the galaxy. Ford nudged Hicks as they rounded another corner. You think we're overdoing it, coming down on 'em this hard? Hicks didn't hesitate. We tried the softer approach, diplomatic talks, treaties, even compromises, and look where that got us. They only respect strength out here. If they see mercy as weakness, then we'll show them something they can't ignore. As the humans secured the control room, their commander's voice came through the ship's comm. Neutralized. Move to extraction point in 5. The room fell into silence as the remaining alien officers stared at the humans with wide, uncertain eyes. Ford studied the alien captain, a slender creature whose silvery skin seemed to shimmer as he shivered. For a moment, Ford almost felt a sliver of pity for him. Almost. Tell the Coalition, Hicks said, addressing the captain directly, that Earth's not something you can shut out or isolate. We're here, and if you don't change your ways, we'll be more than just a reminder. The alien captain swallowed, fear unmistakable in his eyes. He seemed to struggle with words, but he gave a small nod of acknowledgement, whether in defiance or agreement, no one could tell. As the squad filed out, Hicks gave a final look over his shoulder. Remember this day, because from here on it's going to be the new normal. Back on the ship, the crew shed their armor, stretching sore muscles and sharing nods of satisfaction. Their mission was only beginning, but for the first time in generations, humans had made their presence undeniable. The galaxy had ignored Earth for centuries, treating him as an afterthought or a distant curiosity. Now that reputation was being rewritten, and every species, every planet, would remember. The human flagship drifted quietly alongside the Coalition's captured cruiser. The two ships were connected by a skeletal walkway. Inside, soldiers moved back and forth, their voices low but steady as they discussed the day's events. There was no celebration, no wild cheering, just a focused energy, an unspoken agreement that their mission was far from over. Corporal Hicks and Private Ford were back in the mess hall, both clutching steaming mugs of coffee. Their expressions settled somewhere between exhaustion and exhilaration. They were used to the rhythm by now, victory after victory, pushing deeper into Coalition territory, but this was different. The Coalition was finally realizing what Earth's forces were capable of, and that realization was spreading like wildfire. Words already hit the network, Ford said, his voice a murmur. Reports are coming in from every sector. You know how many systems have asked to re-evaluate their treaties with the Coalition? Hicks smirked. Can't say I'm surprised. Once they see we're not the small fish in the pond anymore, everyone wants to jump ship. The door to the mess hall slid open, and Lieutenant Grace stepped in, the kind of officer who rarely cracked a smile, even on his best day. He nodded at Hicks and Ford, then jerked his head toward the corridor. Briefing room. Command wants an update. Let's go. They followed him down the dimly lit passage, boots clanging against the metal floor. The atmosphere in the briefing room was tense, focused around a large circular table. A mix of human officers and diplomats stared at a holographic map of the Coalition's controlled space, marked by clusters of red dots, each representing a heavily fortified station or outpost. Gray cleared his throat and gestured to the map. As you've probably heard, the Coalition is rallying. They're pulling everything they've got to defend their core territories. They're expecting us to keep pushing, and they're right. The map zoomed in on a particularly dense cluster of red marks. Garak Station, a massive spaceport rumored to house some of the Coalition's top brass. Its defenses were legendary, dozens of high-caliber cannons, fighter squadrons, and automated minefields scattered throughout the sector. We need to make a statement, Gray continued, locking eyes with Hicks. We take this station, we break them. It's our shot. Hicks looked at the map, fingers tapping his coffee cup, then slowly nodded. We've been hitting their supply lines and minor stations. Time to take the heart. Ford glanced up at the display, eyes narrowing. Can't say it'll be easy. This place is a fortress. Hicks chuckled darkly. It's never easy, but that's how we know it's worth doing. With that, the final plan was set in motion. Earth's forces would strike the Coalition where it hurt the most, at its core, shattering their confidence, showing them exactly who they were dealing with. The Deathworlders were finally here to stay.